Madam Chair, and with your permission, I'll bring up Lynn Harris from the Montgomery County Council of PTAs. I spoke before at a previous bill hearing about the issues that cropped up in Montgomery County last fall, and this is another bill related to the issue of abuse in schools. In one of the two incidents that happened in Montgomery County last fall, the perpetrator, who actually was just sentenced earlier this week, was a contractor. And in digging into the issue, we discovered that unlike school employees, when you're a school employee, me for example, as a teacher, I had to have a background check. I went into, before I was hired, I went in, had my fingerprints taken by Human Resources, and that was submitted to both state and national databases to ensure that I did not have a criminal background in certain crimes that would hint that I might be a danger to children. But that rule does not apply to contractors and subcontractors, and we believe it should. So what this bill does is it extends that requirement to contractors and subcontractors in not just public schools, but non-public schools as well. You'll notice, as you dig through the testimony here, that the vast majority, almost all of the testimony is in support, including from MABE, the Maryland Association of Boards of Education. And the reason for that is there's general consensus that we need to make sure we've got tight rules on who the employees are in working in schools. The bill specifies that we're talking about contractors who have direct, unsupervised access to children. So this would not limit a contractor who's, working a construction job in the summer when there are no kids around. But in the case at Baker Middle School in my district, the contractor was repairing security cameras in the hallways. And so he had direct access to students while he and the students were unsupervised. And the student, I believe, was on a bathroom pass at the time. You'll also see in the testimony a number of suggestions for amendments, and I want to mention those quickly as the subcommittee discusses this bill. The bill specifies what crimes we are talking about, that you would not be able to work in a school as a contractor if you had it in your background. Advocates have suggested that list of crimes is not adequate enough. Now, that list of crimes comes from current law that applies to public school system employees. So it would be a policy change to add additional crimes there. But I think it should merit some consideration by the subcommittee, and to facilitate that, I have drafted and provided to you a copy of an amendment that would do just that. In addition, you'll see that a number of the pieces of testimony ask for a technical amendment clarifying the process through which criminal background checks would be performed. That may be something the subcommittee wants to consider as well. That's more of a question of who would bear responsibility for the background checks, the contractor or the school system. And I am frankly agnostic on that, as long as the background check is done and a person who has one of these crimes in their background could not work in a school around students in an unsupervised way. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll turn it over to Lynn Harris.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. As Delegate Ludke said, my name is Lynn Harris, and I am the parent of a Montgomery County middle school student. And last fall, when the events of sexual assault that occurred at Baker Middle School became public, I, as a parent of a middle school student, was concerned. And as the information trickled out, and we learned later that the man who assaulted, first we knew about one young woman, and then after the information became public, a second young woman came forward to say that she too had been assaulted by this same man while she was at Baker Middle School. And then at the end of a month, what we had was information stating that this man had worked repairing and installing security cameras in Montgomery County schools for 6 months before this incident occurred, and had been in 58 of our 202 schools, including my son's school on September 26th of last year. And, as a parent, your heart just stops when you see something like that going on. And then when you realize that, the second young lady came forward only after she was emboldened by the fact that another young woman had come forward, but the first young woman came forward only because, perhaps, the incident was witnessed by a teacher who approached the young woman and reported to staff and set the sequence of events in motion by which this subcontractor in the schools was arrested and removed and, as Delegate Ludke said, was sentenced just this week. But the young these young women who were assaulted were engaged in the high-risk activity of walking down the hallway of their public school. And, you know, if we measure the integrity of a society by how well we protect our most vulnerable members, the young and the old, it seems like taking a simple step to help make sure our kids can walk down their school hallways without worrying about being assaulted is a fairly simple and perhaps important thing that we should do. Had this bill been law last fall, that subcontractor would never have set foot in a Montgomery County public school. He had a criminal history of the exact same sorts of behavior that for which he was arrested for assaulting, you know, these young women in Baker Middle School. As a parent and as a citizen, I encourage you to support this bill, to report it out of committee favorably, and take this step to make our public school and private school students safer. Thank you.
Delegate Ludke, I was looking through the bill and skimming through, and I couldn't find the answer, and maybe you also, one of you said it. Who is having the burden of doing the background check? Is it the contractor or is it the school system?
It's not specifically addressed in the bill. I think for my personal preference, if something's done to clarify that, is that the school system do the actual background check. There's already facilities within a process for that within the school systems. But the question of who would bear the cost to pay for that background check, I don't think is as important. If the school system bears the cost, the school system bears the cost. If the contractor bears the cost, they're going to build it into their contract, and the school system will end up paying it anyway. So, but, you know, the bill as written does not speak to it.
I appreciate this bill. I'm just trying to figure out, okay, you do the background check and you find out, and I'm trying to read through this quickly, some of the offenses, I guess, that would prevent somebody from working. Is that what I'm reading right?
Right.
So if somebody is accused of robbery in their record and they've done their time or whatever, would they be prohibited under this legislation from working at the school?
I would have to check and get back to you. That's not so much the intention. What we're talking about here are crimes related to assault, sexual abuse, child abuse, things like that.
So I guess it becomes, once you get the data and you find this out, what are we doing? Is this meant to stop them from work? Who would say whether or not they could work for a school?
So the school system could not knowingly, under the language of the bill, the school system could not knowingly allow that person to work in a school. So what would happen in that case is a contractor, and we actually had to rewrite the bill to clarify this, somebody with that in their background could work for a contractor so long as they were not working on school property with direct unsupervised access to students. So they could work in the contractor's, say, central office answering phones. That's a different thing. But a job where they're actually in the school with direct unsupervised access, the school system could not allow that to occur.
Well, as you well aware, because you chaired gaming, you know, in Baltimore City, they've been trying to hire people to work at the casinos. They had to change up the background check specification because of people like this.
Right.
And so what I'm concerned about in reading this is it says that, you know, talks about applicable crimes are third-degree sexual offenses, child sex abuse, any crime of violence, and we all agree those folks should not be around our kids, but it also goes on to state that a crime of violence are, what the crimes of violence are, abduction, agree with that, arson, okay, kidnapping, yes, manslaughter, but then you talk about, like we mentioned, robbery, and it also says an assault. So you get a college kid that gets into a fight, gets convicted of assault coming out, we're prohibiting him right away, so.
Well, I mean, the point I would make to that is this list of crimes is pre-existing statute that applies to school system employees already. It's been established by the Judiciary Committee through numerous years of debates. The question this bill raises, regardless of issues anyone might have with that specific list of crimes, is should contractors and subcontractors be held to the same standards as other people around children in schools?
And so if you have a contractor that's building a school, right? They're doing the construction.
Right.
So they're going to be limited to having only certain people that can work on this?
If there are no, if they don't have direct unsupervised, we put in that direct unsupervised access language specifically because of this concern. The school systems came back to us and said, what about a construction worker in the summer when there's no kids around, right? What about an emergency situation where an HVAC unit goes out and they need to bring in a contractor to work on it, right? And they don't have time to perform a background check on that person. In that case, that person would have to be supervised by another school staff member. So this bill allows for limitations on people who would be around kids without other staff members around to have background checks. That's what it's really focused on.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
To clarify, Delegate Lutke, to follow up on what Delegate Walker said, you keep referring to the summer, but if a school's being built over a year or over 15 months, you're referring to that time as well, because again, you're referring to the times where students aren't on campus at all, correct?
Right, or a
you.
situation where there's supervision, so.
Given the nature of the business of building and repairing and things like that, and the influx of laborers coming in and out, wouldn't you think it would be better for the contractor to be responsible for the records and the record keeping and the background check and provide that in time of either whether bid or whatever to clarify that they do have, proper background checks on these people? My concern would be is, given that nature, the cost and the record keeping for the schools might be, and that's one thing I would like to see in the bill, that it would be up to the contractor or the subcontractor to maintain records and pay the cost for background check.
And that's a decision I think the subcommittee should absolutely make. My only response to that, well, two responses. One, the school systems, my experience with their background check process is that it's a high-quality process. And I don't know if you have that same quality of background checking occurring if it's happening through the contractors and subcontractors. And the second thing I'd say, we did consult with the ABC on this, and they have no concerns themselves about this bill, but any discussion like that, I would hope that the subcommittee would also ask for input from ABC. So.
Right. Well, one of the concerns I would have with that would be, the record keeping,
right,
maintaining the records, and making sure that these people do have a proper background check. And could we add language to this bill that would require the background check to meet what they're doing in the public schools and in the parochial schools? That way it would eliminate that, question that you're talking about as far as background checks. Could we address that in this bill?
The subcommittee and committee, it's subcommittee's bill at this point. I'm completely open to that.
Well, thank you for this bill. It does make a lot of sense. We just need to tweak it a little bit.
Right.
Thank you much.
Madam Chair, Delegate Jay Walker answered all my questions.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you,
okay? The next, be careful following him all the time, okay? Lisa Jordan, be careful following him all the time, okay? Lisa Jordan, not here. Okay. Ellen Mugmon.
Hi, Madam Chair. My name is Ellen Mugmon. I'm a long-standing child advocate in Maryland. Indeed, I helped draft the original background check bill. That tells you how old I am. But I have very serious concerns about this bill, not the part that adds contractors the criminal background check, which is a good part of the bill, but the part of the bill that puts in applicable offenses, because it implies to human resources directors and employers that there are unapplicable offenses. and which are actually very applicable. So, for example, the parent who just testified here, Lynn Harris, said that she talked about the man who had, she assumed that he had been convicted of sexual assault. He had not. He had been convicted of second-degree assault, which has no sexual component in it. And then after he abused the children in the schools, he still was convicted of second-degree assault. Now, second-degree assault is a crime of violence in another section of the law, 5-101, in the public safety article. So we have different lists, and that list has that kind of crime, but 14-101 of the criminal law article does not. So what I've done here is I made a list myself of all the crimes that this bill would not cover, but not all of them, because it was too tiring to look through the whole criminal law article. So I'm going to name a few of them. Child pornography, possession, distribution, and manufacture. We have some teachers actually manufacturing pornography in the schools. We have sex trafficking, stalking, fourth-degree sex offense, sexual solicitation of a minor, abuse and neglect of vulnerable adults, false imprisonment, animal cruelty, etc. There's a whole list that I have on the second page. So my suggestion is not necessarily to add all of these because they're not all-encompassing, but maybe to take out this list altogether and ask the Maryland State Department of Education to work on how to screen people, and it's not just criminal background checks, but how to screen them within that, and also to look at other ways to screen individuals, because this just doesn't work. I was around when this passed, and I said, okay, and I didn't catch this bill at the time, and I said this was really a bad idea, because whenever you get into lists, they're usually under-inclusive, and this is what this list is. So for the safety of children, I would ask that you amend the bill in the way that I suggested.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Mugman, my question, the list that you're suggesting that we add, my understanding is that the bill is drafted as trying to give contractors and subcontractors the same rules as teachers and other school employees. So the list that you're suggesting and that you have here in your testimony, would you suggest that you would want that added for all school employees as well?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
But I don't really want the list because, again, lists are problematic in legislation. But if that's where you want to go, I can add some more to that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, John Willems. Not here. Hearing on House Bill 642. Members of the committee, please turn to House Bill 790. Delegate Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Honored members, oops, where are we? Is it? House Bill 790 is a delegation bill from the Washington County delegation specifically requested by our Board of Education to fill what from time to time is a need in Washington County for specified teachers and qualified teachers in a certain class of fields as specified by the statute or the bill. Washington County is one of those counties on the western end of the state where, quite frankly, we sometimes have trouble getting people to come out from the center part of Maryland, although many of our residents do drive into the center part of Maryland for their own employment. In this particular case, Washington County has, at least one occasion, realized a difficulty in filling a very career-specified program, as indicated in a letter that you should all have from our Superintendent Clayton Wilcox, to find certain type of person who could perform the skills necessary for a Homeland Security program that we offer in order to try and prepare people for that next step in life, which is employability. With me today are several people who are here to give additional information about this bill, and also we hope that you will consider the bill and rule favorably upon it.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm Laura Francisco. I'm the Executive Director of Human Resources for Washington County Public Schools. Our objective at Washington County Public Schools is always to appoint the best teachers and staff members that we can. We are seeking people with deep content expertise and the experience to make that content relevant and compelling to our students. We and our applicants are not universally well served by the current certification process, and we are looking for a way to move forward with an innovative approach to putting the best people in front of our kids. 9 times out of 10, we are hiring and will hire a traditionally certified individual to teach. But in the instances where we have a critical shortage, where we are asking for the flexibility to expand our pool of applicants to include engineers, architects, doctors, scientists, and other individuals with deep content expertise, without shouldering the often burdensome requirements of state certification. We are asking you to remove some of those barriers to our success. And I want to share one example that Delegate Wilson mentioned, a Homeland Security program that is currently in place in Washington County. We have a teacher who is conditionally certified. She is a U.S. Army military intelligence officer for the last 30-some years. She actually culminated her career by serving as the Chief of Staff for the Afghanistan-Pakistan Intelligence Task Force and Crisis Current Operations Chief. She's received the Legion of Merit Award and many other awards from the military. She has 3 master's degrees, one of which happens to be in education, but is in curriculum and instruction versus the pedagogy type of courses that are needed and required by the state. So to receive her certification for this position, her regular contract certification, she would need to complete, 12 additional credits of education courses and provide a passing score on a basic skills test, a praxis test, the ACT, the SAT, or the GRE. Yet this is someone who literally served as the Joint Chief of Staff in Afghanistan and Pakistan, is eminently qualified and experienced to teach a Homeland Security program. We ask for a favorable report on this bill.
Thank you. Dar.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I am Lindsay Darr, Coordinator of Human Capital for Washington County Public Schools. I support the bill in order to allow us additional flexibility in hiring experienced and qualified candidates without losing them due to the timing of certification requirements, particularly in specialty and specialized areas where a qualified certified candidate does not exist. Therefore, I urge you to establish a favorable report on House Bill 790. Thank you.
I'm Ardith Cade, and I'm the Legislative Liaison to the Washington County Board of Education. Washington County is asking to be a pilot program in this case. This goes beyond the normal certification to allow the kind of creativity that we are seeing in our school systems, where we are teaching non-traditional courses, we are teaching many more things that are career-oriented, and we can draw on specialists and people in industry and in special fields, as was described. So this is a pilot. We would like to be allowed to do this in order that the rest of the state could see whether it works well and whether there are the kinds of courses, the kind of training would be provided to these special teachers that would then give them permanent employment without necessarily going back and taking 12 hours of education courses.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Delegate Wilson, and all of you testifying today. Ardith, good to see you as always. My question on this bill goes back to something that came up also during the charter school bill deliberations in terms of certified teachers. And I heard the young woman on the end suggesting the Homeland Security expert, but a lot of people are experts in their field who are unable to convey knowledge, and content experts aren't necessarily the best teachers. So we do have in Maryland, as I look at my notes, from many years ago, a meeting that I had about the alternative prep programs we have for career changers, that there's 20 different variations based on need that don't require the typical teacher preparation programs and don't necessarily require praxis. So, I mean, are there other options there that you can look at in terms of other alternative certification programs?
There are other alternative certification programs. Washington County previously participated in a teacher in residence program that is in the legislation, that we partner with an institute of higher education, develop a program, set a set of courses. We had a very difficult time getting enough people to join a cohort to support that. In addition, at least from what I've seen, the subject areas are limited to certain special education, math, and sciences, so it may limit us. But to address the first point that you made in terms of whether or not they are able to teach, we have a very